Mute. Let's can resume record. Okay, let's get started. Hey, Heather, welcome to the AMA. I'm going to give folks just a second to come in. I'll wait just another minute, but if there's anything you want to ask while we wait, please go ahead. That's right. Oh, no, we have somebody else. No private session. Hey, Paula, welcome. We're just letting folks in to get started.
Sounds good.
Hey, Katya, welcome. Just welcoming people in. Hi, nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you too, Jill. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining.
Of course. Thanks for joining. Where are you based?
I'm in Los Angeles, so
Oh,
beautiful.
you are? Okay.
Very, very windy, LA.
Yes, it is very windy. I never knew my neighbors had wind chimes. I guess.
Yes, I bet it's a nice thing to find out. I heard it's the Santa Ana's today, so it's going to be a little nutty out here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that explains this, right? Like my son
Yeah.
woke up with sniffles and started coughing in the middle of the night, had to turn on the humidifier. That explains, yes, what happened.
Do you
You
think
guys
it's
don't know we have this phenomenon. Usually the wind comes in off the ocean and it's nice and moist and pleasant. And at certain points in the year, it reverses and it comes in from the desert. And it feels like all the water has been sucked out of your skin instantly. And it might last for like for 36 hours. It might last for days. And like you just feel dry and everything is dry. I have dry eyes, dry sinuses, dry throat, dry skin. And so, yeah, we don't have a ton of water to start with. We're all tripling down on our Nalgene bottles.
Mhm.
So, there you
Exactly.
go.
Can't go anywhere without it. Really. I love that. What part of LA are you in, Jill?
I'm in Los Feliz.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite neighborhoods. I love that.
How about you?
I'm in the Fairfax Melrose area.
Oh,
So,
nice. Okay. When I first moved here, I lived over there, which was great. Yeah.
such a good place.
So nice to walk to everything.
Exactly. That's for sure.
All right. Well, I have a pretty full slate of questions today. So I'm going to get started with some of the things we've submitted. Please feel welcome to drop into the chat. raise your hand if you have any. I'm flying solo today, so I'll be monitoring the chat and admitting people as they come in. So I'll try to do that as smoothly as I possibly can. But again, if you have questions at any point, raise your hand or pop them into the chat, and we'll just put them in the flow of the things that people have submitted over the month. Okay. So the first question, given that we're going into tax time, I got a lot of questions this month about what can I still do for retirement savings. So I'm going to start with those two. There's a simpler one and a more complex one. So the first one is, I'm preparing my taxes and confused about what my retirement saving options are. What can I still do for 2023? Okay, so there are two buckets of retirement savings. There are personal accounts where we can put money that we've earned into a personal IRA for ourselves. And then there are business accounts where we can put earnings from our business profits into business retirement accounts. So the ones that you probably know, they may all be called IRA, but they have different titles to let you know where they sit. And if you opened a 401k before December, but you haven't funded it, that's also a possibility. But if you haven't opened it by now, that one's off the table. So I'm not going to talk so much about the 401k because I'm assuming if you haven't figured out what you need to do by now, you probably don't have one of those. So the 401k, again, if you don't already have it set up for 2023, you cannot get it going for 2023. You can start it now for 2024. So if you have just income for yourself personally that you want to save, your options are a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. The traditional IRA is pre-tax. The Roth IRA is post-tax. The Roth IRA also has some restrictions above certain household income levels. You can't use it, but everyone can use a traditional IRA. So the cap on that is $7,000, and that just goes from your personal account into the IRA. You're done, right? But you need to declare it on your personal taxes. So every year you have to get the tax protections. Every year by the time you file your taxes or April 15th, even if you take an extension, the personal account has to be funded. It has to be recorded that it went in for 2023. Otherwise, you don't get the credit for your taxes. On the business side, you can at any point up to the time you file your extended taxes, so it might be as late as October of the following year, you can open a SEP IRA. So that's a simplified employee pension thing. And that has a much higher limit on it. It's based on either, depending on your organization, what you paid yourself or the profitability of your company. So the business can save money for you. This works the best if you don't have employees, but if it's your first year doing it or your second year doing it, you don't have to, probably don't have to include your employees because they're not eligible until they've been with you for 2 full years. So the higher amounts, you typically are going to do this on a pre-tax basis. So if you have a lot of profit in your business and you don't want to pay tax on it this year, you can put, I believe it's 25% of the company's profits or 20% of what you paid yourself, again, depending on how you're organized, put that into a business IRA in your name. And the cap on that is almost $70,000. It's very, very high. So 7 or 70, right? That's a pretty big difference of what you can save per year. So there is a maximum. And again, you are going to have to put the money in the account and put it on your taxes as having done it before you file them. So the business account gives you the most flexibility. So if you were profitable and you want to save something for retirement, the SEP IRA is probably what you're going to use at this point for the highest amount to take profit out of your business and shelter it from paying taxes. So that's sort of like the backward looking, what we can still do for 2023. Just keep in mind your personal has to be contributed and on your taxes before you file them and no later than April 15th, even if you take an extension. On the business side, you get more flexibility. So that is kind of the basics of 2023. The other question that I got is, what's the easiest way to set up a Roth 401k for yourself as an employee and have your employer contribute a similar amount to their self-employed 401k? So 401k, it has to be set up by an employer, right? So if you don't own a business, you can't set up a 401k for yourself. So the thing that I think the person is getting at here is it's relatively recent that an employer can choose very fluidly to say, hey, do you want to put the money in traditionally, like pre-tax, or do you want to put your in a Roth setting. That means it's post-tax. So you pay the tax now, and all the growth in the future is not taxed. So more employers are moving to this. And if you're setting up a new 401k, you should have the option when you set it up to say, would you like to only offer traditional, or would you like to offer traditional and Roth? So that would be the way that your employer could then set up both things within one 401k, and then you would choose where you want the money to go based on your allocation. So if you wanted 100% of your money to go to a Roth and you want to pay the taxes now, great. And your employer could use, in their owner side of the account, they could just use the traditional IRA and contribute as they do. One thing to keep in mind about 401ks, there's a new tax credit from last year. If small businesses, I believe under 50 employees, set up a 401k, they get 3 years of tax credits. So you get an administrative cost credit that can be up to $5,000 a year. And then if you set up auto contribution, so you auto enroll all your employees at a minimum contribution, you get another $500 a year. So that's pretty significant. And in a lot of 401ks for small businesses, that will cover most of the cost of the administration. So it's a little bit more expensive to have a 401k because you need what's called the third-party administrator, a TPA, as a fiduciary, and they take a fee every quarter. Plus there's usually a setup fee. So you can look at, there are more streamlined options. If you use Gusto, they have guideline built in. Their fees are relatively low annually. So you would, be able to get 100% of that fee back. It's definitely not going to cost you $5,000 a year to have a guideline 401k. Vanguard has a relatively low cost 401k. Just make sure you ask up front if you are concerned about the administrative costs around a 401k. And then also make sure that they can facilitate both a traditional and a Roth IRA, or a traditional and Roth savings plan within that. So yeah, unfortunately, you as an employee at a small company cannot say, I'd like to have a 401k, right? You can use a traditional or Roth IRA for your earnings, but again, that's only at 7%. So this might be something, again, to talk to your employer. If you're a really small group, maybe you can have a conversation about some things you might be willing to trade off in order for that person to offer the 401k. Or if you let them know that they're going to get 3 years of tax credits toward this, maybe that makes it easier for them to offer it. And they can recoup a lot of the expenses involved. Okay, that's a lot of retirement. Any follow-ups on all the retirement stuff? Because I know as we go into taxes, sometimes this gets thrown over the wall. Your accountant will be like, oh, you had profits. Do you want to put some money in a retirement account? You could put like this much. And this is always a day, when that comes over, that I get a lot of questions that are like, what is that? How do I do it? Where do I send the money? How do I decide, right? What if I don't have that much money? Can I do some of it? So if you do get the, hey, you can save for retirement from your business and you don't have anyone to talk to about how to do that, go on my website, grab a strategy session. We can talk through the details on it. Okay. Next question. Okay, so tomorrow, the 15th, is the regular deadline to elect for your LLC to be taxed as an S-Corp. So I did get a couple questions about S-Corp filing. So let's see. We'll start with, should I opt in to be an S-Corp? So if you use social media and you are a business owner, you are probably getting regular information in your feed that's like, be an S-Corp, you're going to save so much money. Oh my God, the taxes are nothing. But depending on your state and how much profit you actually make, it could end up costing you more to operate as an S-Corp. So you really have to look at both what do you actually save on and what additional costs are you taking on? So if you are consistently profitable, in low tax states, Nevada, Texas, Florida, you don't have to be that profitable, just consistently profitable to make an S-Corp make sense. In higher tax states, in California, we usually talk about to make it work. It takes some people say 80 as a floor. Some people say 120,000 in profits as a floor to make it make sense if you again, don't need the formal corporation designation. So just something to think about of do I have enough profit to make this work? Where that comes into play is you save money on payroll taxes because when you are an LLC or a sole proprietor and you pay yourself, every time you move money from your business account into your personal account, that distribution owes payroll taxes of 15.3-ish% to the federal government to pay for Social Security and Medicare. So every single time, it's like if you're, whatever you're paying for, money goes from business account to personal account, you can pile 15% on top of that, plus then you have to pay income tax. So one of the benefits of an S Corp, and this is where like the online calculators that you see usually come up with their number of what you're going to save, is you have to make yourself a W-2 employee and pay yourself a reasonable salary. But usually that salary is only part of what you want to pay yourself. And then the distributions that you take for yourself are withdrawn without having to pay payroll tax. So you can balance a way to like you pay payroll tax on your W-2 and you don't pay payroll tax on your distributions. So that's the place where a lot of the savings come from. If you're paying that 15% every time you draw money out for yourself, you might be able to bring that down. And there are a couple of ways that works, but I'm not going to bore you with the vagaries of that. So the money to you side can look really attractive, right? But you will have some additional expenses, right? You have to file a separate tax return as an S Corp. So that's 2 tax preparations and filings that you have to pay for. And then you do have to like run a payroll. Some accountants will do this for you, but you do formally have to register as an employer with your state. You have to pay into payroll taxes on a quarterly basis if you are, regularly paying yourself or paying others. So, that is some just additional administrative cost. Like typically, I think with an LLC, depending on your state, it costs between like $2,000 and $4,000 a year to run an LLC. An S Corp is probably going to cost you between 4 and 8. So, you really have to look at like, am I getting enough tax savings with this extra headache of like all the extra administrative stuff I have to do as an S Corp to make this worth my while? So I think a lot of people will just look at, yay, oh my gosh, that payroll tax burden is a lot lower. But then they don't understand the administrative side of it and the additional expenses that they're going to be taking on. So, again, just make sure it's carefully considered. If you're super high profit, like you're a consultant that basically has no expenses and it's just all, there for you to pay yourself, it probably makes sense, minus in the, 4 or 5 places where an S Corp is just disregarded as a tax benefit. So there is on my blog, thejilljames.com/blog, if you search S Corp, there is a post called 3 Ways to Avoid an IRS Penalty from an S Corp, and it goes through all of the compliance. And then at the bottom, there is a webinar that I did with a state and local tax attorney that goes through kind of what Nexus is, where S Corps pay off, what your obligations are for S Corp, all of those things. So if you really want to get into this, there is an hour-long webinar with a very detailed presentation by a lawyer. So I think that's a good thing to consider before you do actually opt in, right? Because you're stuck with this for 5 years. Like you can't opt back out again next year. The other question I got, again, since the postmark deadline is tomorrow, if I miss the S Corp filing deadline and realize I made a lot of profit and I want to do this before 2025, do I have that option? So yes, there is on the form that you fill out, there's a section to say, like, what happened, right? I missed it. So you or your accountant can appeal to the IRS. It's not guaranteed that it'll be approved, but most of the time it is. I haven't seen a case where it's not approved. Sometimes it just takes a little while. So you can appeal later in the year and ask like, hey, we missed the deadline. We'd still like to be considered this way. And as long as you've met the administrative requirements, a lot of the time, most of the time, I'm sure it's not all the time, but very often you will be allowed to treat the whole year as S Corp. So today is just the normal deadline. And there's, again, there's very low risk that you wouldn't be approved. Later in the year, it is sort of a toss up of like, will you be approved or is it for the first of the year next year? Because you might not be able to do it retroactively, but maybe you can. So it's not a never, it's a maybe. Okay. That is it on S Corps. Katya, I see that you have a question here, so we'll pop in and you're welcome if you want to come off mute and we can kind of dialogue on it, or I can just answer it as is. Totally your call. Okay, so the question is, what is the correct order of starting and registering a business? A friend told me these steps, and while I've yet to read the SBA or other rules, I'd love to hear from you. The steps they shared: form an LLC with Sundoc, LegalZoom, etc., business bank account, EIN, register with the state, statement of information. It's a little bit out of order. You're gonna need the EIN to get a bank account. So the again, assuming you want an LLC, and that's the right form for you, then yes. So the LLC actually registers you with your state of operation usually. So I think that's a first decision of like, do you want to register your business in your home state? Most of the time, that's the right option. You know, a lot of people will be like, oh, Delaware, but you still end up having to register in your home state because that's physically where you sit and do the work. So you would still have to be registered here. So I know particularly in California, because we have that $800 annual fee, sometimes people are like, oh, I'd like to register in Nevada. It's just right there and they don't have any fees. You still have to register as a foreign LLC in California because this is where you sit and this is where you operate most of the time. So then you're going to have now 2 state filings that you have to do instead of just one, and you still have to pay the $800. So that's sort of the pro of just register in your home state, unless you have a really good legal reason for not doing it. So yes, forming an LLC, let's see, you can get an EIN with your name. You don't have to have an LLC yet. So I would say, you know, the first step is just go get the free EIN with the business name that you want. And then you can provide that as part of the LLC setup. And there isn't any confusion for them to accidentally create another one. I see that all the time. Accidentally, there are multiple EINs created at the start of a company. So I would first establish the EIN. It's free and you just do it on, you know, the IRS website. And then, yes, depending on the provider that you want to work with, go through your formal LLC registration in your state. You can concurrently, by having that, sometimes you can set up a bank account just with the EIN, and then you can go back and give them the articles. Sometimes they want the articles first. So you can just check with the bank. It's a good option. It's a good opportunity to start having a relationship with a business banker at the bank that you're thinking about, because they can tell you, hey, here's what I need you to have in order to set up this business bank account for you. Additional registration with the state would only be if you're an S Corp, you need to register as an employer, but otherwise your LLC, you're sufficiently registered with the state. Right? Because you'll have your articles of operation, you'll have all your officers listed, you'll have the place where you're operating, you'll have your EIN. That's really all you need. The statement of information, the first year that you sign up, your statement of information just is your LLC application. So particularly because I know you're doing this in California, if you change addresses or add an officer to the company, you have to file an updated statement of information. But if no changes take place, it's just every 2 years on the opposite anniversary, the second anniversary and the fourth anniversary of your LLC filing, you have to pay the whatever $30 to file formally. Hey, we didn't have any changes. Here's my updated statement of information. That's in good standing. There are other states that want you to file what's called an annual report, but it's the same thing. It's just who are the officers of the company? Where is it located? Did anything change? So, you know, depending on your state, it might be mandated that you once a year have to file a statement of information or every other year. But the first year, that's just wrapped into your LLC application with the state. So there are a couple steps here that I think, if that's clear, yeah. The first 3 you definitely will need to do, but possibly in a slightly different order. And then the last 2 should just be wrapped into your organization.
Yeah. Jill, can I play that back and ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So I heard you say step 1, get an EIN with my business name on the IRS website. There's like, I've heard people talking about like DBA, doing business as. Their recommendation of saying like, I looked on the IRS website, my business name is not taken. So I was thinking of grabbing that versus using just my name, right? I don't want to do like Kati Davy Jova LLC. I want to do my name. Do you have any recommendations on like the DBA aspect or any explanations of the DBA aspect versus registering an EIN under like an official name? Like, it's a
Yes.
business name.
Okay, I'm going to split that into two things again, because I know you're in LA County. You also have to make sure your name is available in LA County, because they can have a DBA that has been created and hasn't filed taxes yet. That's not going to show up on the IRS website. So you also have to just check locally, is the DBA available in LA County? And you have to register it with them.
In addition to the state.
Yeah, the state will sweep the LA County, or so you need to check the name availability, but officially you have to file it with LA County. As I am doing business as. Even if it's just you, the sole proprietor, if you are using a business name, you need to make sure it's available with the county and file it with the county. And then there's sort of the larger, I mean, if you have a DBA in one state and somebody else is using the same business name, it's not a big deal. If you see a business name inside the state and they're not doing the same industry or the same kind of close thing, like you're not spoofing them, you can use the same name. So LLC name exclusivity, kind of soft, right? And you really, if you absolutely know that forever, this is my brand name and this is the thing I want to use, register your LLC that way. If you're not sure what your name is going to be in the future, or you think you want to add a brand name later, just pick something that's available. Like your name LLC is just the legal entity, right? There might be reasons you don't want to do that, because maybe you nest it with other things in the future, and so it's like not so obvious it's you. But for most people, they're not going to do that. So just for the sake of like, I don't want you to get hung up on the name of your LLC, because you can file sort of infinite DBAs into the future for names that are available and operate under those names.
Gotcha. Can you share a use case of using a DBA?
Sure.
I'm like not very familiar.
So when I started my company, and it's still called this, was SIF Industries, LLC. So I'm registered with California, and my initial brand name for my company was SIF Industries, LLC, and that was my domain, everything else. And so I didn't have to file a DBA because I was using the name of my LLC. So in 2020, I decided to rebrand. And thankfully, there wasn't anyone else with my name using my name. So I registered, my company will now DBA in LA County as this. And then I filed also with the IRS of like, hey, this EIN and this business name is also associated with this new name.
Like,
so now I use the same name. Both company names are on my bank account because I have that statement of DBA. So if somebody writes a check to the new name or the old name, I can deposit it either way. If ACH comes in to the wrong company, right? If they didn't follow the instructions, they have old instructions, they can still accept the deposit. So I think that's, I do see people get really hung up on delaying their LLC because they aren't sure what they want to call the company. And so as long as the name is available and doesn't have a conflict in the same industry, which you can look up on the Secretary of State website and also on like the LA County website, as long as you're cleared on that, it really doesn't matter what your LLC is called, because that's just the legal entity, and your DBA can be a brand name. I think almost every company I've ever worked for as a startup called the company something and then figured out what they wanted to do and gave it a brand name. So my checks have never come from the name of the company I actually work for. So it's really common, like, unless you just absolutely feel solid in this moment, this is what I want my company to be called. Pick a name, check for conflicts, and then go ahead and you can always redo it. I think the thing that gets really tricky is like, if you want a domain name and you want to start doing branding, like you want to know what that name is, because rebranding is expensive and complicated for all the places on the internet that you're going to put stuff. Changing your domain name, changing your handles, like that's actually like, well, that's not legal. That is much harder to do, right? And redirecting all your URLs and everything else. So, the legal part doesn't have all of that. It's pretty simple to set up a DBA. So yeah, I would worry less about what to call your LLC, but really think about like when I'm going to put an identity, a brand identity out in the world, like, did I get that part right?
Sure. Yeah. So right now you're the Jill James DBA as SIF Industries, or DBA SIF Industries.
I'm SIF Industries LLC DBA, the Jill James.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it's a little weird on contracts, but you know, it's fine.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, good luck. So yes, if you, I don't know if you've done this before. I work with CorpNet. They're in Agora Hills. There's a link on my website because they actually have like humans that you can talk to. It's not all automated. So it's also an option for registration if you want to look at that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure. Okay. Well, as long as we're talking about starting a business, I think I have another question on this one. Let's see. I don't think I've been keeping my personal and business expenses separated enough. How do I start doing that? Okay. So if you are, you know, I think what we just, you know, again, talked about is like, even if you're sole proprietor, you can have an EIN, you can open a bank account. Again, you, the human being, can say, I'm doing business as this company. You can set up a DBA for you in a sole proprietorship, in an LLC, and then set up your business infrastructure using an EIN and a business name. So, you know, if you want to do that, great. If you don't, but just, you know, again, make sure all of your business accounts clearly say you and the name of your business, even if you're sole proprietorship. So in terms of keeping things separate, I do, even if you're sole proprietor, absolutely recommend like there be a business checking account and a personal checking account, and all of the money that you make from your business goes first into the business checking account, right? No money that you're paid from your business should come into your personal checking account. You want everything to flow into your business. So that's the first thing of keeping things separate. It's just all of the income, whether, you know, direct or on a 1099, have it paid to your business. And then from there, figure out your allowable business expenses and pay them from the business. So if it's a qualified business expense, right? If you're allowed to pay for your car payment, you can pay for your health insurance, you can pay for your travel costs. I was just working with someone in the film and television industry, right? It was like, put your internet on here, put your streaming on here, put your movie tickets on here. These are all things you're doing for your business. So run everything you're possibly allowed to run through your business cleanly against that income through your business. And when you are transferring money to yourself as payment, move it from your business account to your personal account, because that's going to incur payroll taxes. So that's like, there's a separate kind of tax you have to track on that. So make clean movements of money from business account to pay personal account as like, I'm moving this chunk to cover these expenses, right? Don't just start like peeling off $27 when you need to pay a bill. Like take a chunk of money every 2 weeks, every month, like, or as you need it, like add it up and move it from your business to your personal. So I think just getting in the discipline of the money that you earn from the business comes into the business expenses are paid from the business account, and then we cleanly show money moves from your business operations to your personal payment. That's really going to help when both for tax time and also should anything else happen to show the business operated as a business and keep that all kind of in the business bubble. I just realized I didn't do this. My video editor's not going to love that I didn't do that. Okay. So that's kind of the most basic. Income into the business expenses paid out of the business, personal money moved over into the personal account. If, you know, when you need to kind of get beyond that, you know, expenses and reimbursements and other things, you know, I think that's a good place to just talk about both from a systemic, like how are we going to track this perspective, talk with your tax accountant, make sure that you're keeping good records. But that's foundationally just personal and business income and expenses separated. Okay.
Hey, Jill.
Yes.
Do you still have to pay payroll taxes if you're a sole prop and you have a business and a personal account?
Yes.
Fascinating. So it doesn't matter if you're a sole prop or an LLC, either way, you got to have the split and you're going to pay taxes on it.
Yes. So if you're an LLC, you have to choose your tax designation, and most LLCs choose to be taxed as a sole proprietor or a partnership. So
Mm,
unless you choose for your LLC to be taxed as an S corp, and then you have to behave like an S corp, like we just talked through. If you're a sole proprietor or a partnership, then you still have to pay payroll taxes on the money that you pay yourself.
gotcha.
Right. So the LLC is a wrapper to separate your business and personal stuff. And so, like, say someone sues you in the future and you have a house and a retirement account over here, you can say, that's not business stuff, that's mine. The stuff in the LLC, okay, fair game. You can come after that, but all my personal stuff is not part of the business. You can't have that, right? That's mostly what it does for you. And then your tax treatment is the other choice that you get. If you file as an S corp, obviously you're an S corp. If you file as an LLC, you get to choose. So there are two steps to it. There's the legal protection, and then there's how you want to be taxed.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the nice thing is, like, as you get up and running, if you realize like you're highly profitable in the future, you don't have to completely reincorporate if you want to be an S corp, right? You just file a piece of paper, hopefully by March 15th, and then you have 5 years where you can be an S corp, or until you rescind it. Okay. What else do we have? I'm going to go with this one next. So I got a question on financial prioritization. I've run down my emergency fund and I have credit card debt. Should I build up my emergency fund or pay off my credit card? Good question. Personally, for me, the way that I think about this is there's probably some amount of cash that you need for things you cannot put on a credit card in the future that you just need. So if you want to have, like, say, 2 months of rent or 2 months of payroll in the bank to not stress yourself out, I would look at maintaining that minimum cash reserve first. Everything above and beyond that, assuming you don't have a credit line, should go to the highest credit that you have, the highest expense credit that you have. So that credit card, absolutely, like, don't even wait till the end of the month. If you have extra money, pay it down as much as you can as you go. Because credit cards, depending on your personal credit, right now might be between 18 and 28% that you're paying on APR on that. And, like, that is very, very expensive money. Like, that's practically loan shark money. So, it's really going to eat into your business expenses to have that kind of interest expense versus the comfort of keeping the money in the bank or having more money in the bank. You can always put the money back on the credit card for, again, anything that is not a cash expense. So, pay down that credit card as quickly as you can. The other thing that I think people don't know about credit cards is often you can negotiate your interest rate or go back to the bank and say, is there anything you can do for me? Because if you ultimately decide you're not going to pay that credit card, or you need to go into a credit management program, they get almost nothing. So it's in their interest to give you a better interest rate or give you a promotional rate or something like that. They also, like, transfer it out onto another 0% APR card. They don't get anything. So, you can at any time call your credit card companies and say, hey, I intend to pay this. What can you do for me? Right? I need 6 months to pay this off. I need 12 months to pay this off. Some of them have formal plans, like Chase has Chase Plan, and they put a fixed amount of interest against the total amount and let you pay it off over a certain amount of time. It doesn't affect your credit rating. Some of them will just simply say, hey, I can take this chunk of money, and for the next 6 months, I can give you a 6% APR on it to give you some window of time to pay it off. So, if you are kind of stuck in this, like, I'm paying a lot of interest, but I don't feel like I can pay down my credit card, call them and just, again, start with, hey, I intend to pay this off with you. What can you do to help me? And most credit card companies will negotiate with you, again, to help you pay something and help you with the interest rate for a short period of time. So I find that that's, like, a big miss by people, of, like, just because it's on there at a certain interest rate, that doesn't mean that that has to be the interest rate it's at. So definitely call and ask. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Cash flow in my business. I am having trouble with my accounts receivable management. What can I do to improve this? right. So there's something that is driving me nuts about everybody's feelings about credit cards. I have no accounts receivable in my business because everyone who works with me is on a fixed monthly credit card charge that happens either on the first of the month or sometime into the month, or they've set up a recurring ACH and we draw against it on a day of the month. So I don't spend any time chasing things. I can decide if I want to pay some extra money to get my receivables out of the processor faster, but like the money is largely in my control from the exact day that they're supposed to pay. Like at 12:01 on the first of the month, I have alarms going off on my phone that are just like paid for the first of the month. So, I see a lot of people who are really concerned about the 2 or 3%, for most of us 3% that you have to pay for credit cards, but it's easy to do. You don't have to chase money, and you get the money within 3 days. So I would just think of the trade-off of that, of if you have clients that would pay you that way, or setting up a very simple, put in your debit card or put in your routing number here in my portal, not go back to your bank and set up a whole thing and figure out how to do it yourself. Give them an easy way to provide a credit card number, a debit card number, or ACH instructions. And to the extent it's possible, put in built-in permission of, if it is a repeating account, you get permission to charge that each month on the date that you simply send the invoice, you charge it, you send a receipt, and it all happens within a short amount of time. So I think that's the number one of getting stuck on having to pay something versus nothing on payment types. Really like staying away or saying you have to pay me a 3% fee if you want to use a credit card. Most people are then going to delay. They're going to take 15 days, 30 days. It's going to take longer for you to get paid. So really think about like what is that 3% costing you in delays, in follow-ups, in chasing, in money that you're loaning for free to like basically loaning for free to your customer while you're borrowing, putting things on a credit card, putting things on a credit line. Make it as easy as possible for people to pay you. I know it's not as easy when you work with very large companies to dictate your terms. But another thing that when you are working with a large company or a company that has a finance department that has to be gone through, work with your direct contact there to find out who is the person who processes your payments. Can you contact them? Is there a regular cadence that they process? Is there anything they need? Like, get to know that person who processes the payments at the company, and don't just leave it on your direct contact there or your client there to make sure you get paid. Because often those folks will look out for you or will let you know, hey, this money is coming on this day. I have it set up. It's in the system. I'm going to send you a confirmation, because they don't want you to call back over and over. They just want to say, I got it done. So, if ever there is an issue, again, it's not, hey, your client's on vacation that week. Like, you have someone you can call directly in the finance department to get something done. So sometimes that can help with just, again, shortening the timelines or finding different options of, letting them know there are other ways that you can get paid, and maybe they can do that for you. So yeah, again, credit cards, and know who's actually putting the payment in the system at bigger companies. And that can make a very big difference in the amount of time that you're spending chasing your receivables and how quickly people pay you and you have that money back in the business. Because I am seeing right now, like 2 to 3 months of, kind of business expensive coverage sitting in AR. 30 days, 60 days, we're asking, we're chasing, and we could have gotten paid right away. So anything you can do to create ease of payment upfront for your clients is, again, you're paying 3% or you're paying interest on something to borrow the money to cover what you should have gotten paid. So make sure you're thinking of both sides of that when you're thinking of like, oh, I will just send them an invoice and wait for them to pay me. All right. Any other tricks people are using to get paid? Any other things that you're doing to shorten your receivable life cycle? If you want to share, go ahead and pop it in the comments. Refuel on the coffee here. Let's see. I think we've gotten to almost. Oh no, I have 2 more. Okay. Okay. So I do have two more questions to go over. If there's stuff from folks who are here live and you want to ask anything else, please pop that into the chat. We have up to 15 minutes left. I don't think these 2 questions are going to take that long. So, but we'll mix in anything that you guys want to ask. Okay. I want to take 2 weeks of vacation this summer, but I don't know how to do that without my business falling apart. Help. Okay. Um, well, again, depending on your business objectives, there are a few different ways to approach this. One is, if you are you are the business, talking to people now and getting on their radar of like, hey, I'm going to take this time. I need to, over the couple of months before, get some things organized or move meetings around or, so that I can take this time off. Sometimes that is just enough being upfront that it's coming with a little advance warning, where, especially in the summer, people might be, I'm out of the office then too. Oh, that's pretty slow. I'm not that worried about it. So some of the, the regular things that you do, you might be able to, move in the month or kind of work around. So I would say the first thing is just, try to talk to the people who are impacted and see if you can reshuffle some of the work in a way that like you still feel like you can get it done. If you have this amount of time, if there are things like day to day that have to be done, you have a window of time to get set up with some kind of virtual assistant or temporary help or something else. And also to start recording videos and like how to do it stuff to help that person learn to do what you're doing. You might actually find that you want to keep that person beyond, kind of 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after your vacation to, because it just smooths out the work that you need to do and you've already trained them. But if you are going to go that route, start documenting what you do as you do it for some of your repeatable tasks that you're going to want them to take on. I know my team uses Loom a lot. You can record your screen grab of like you walking through a process. We also use Grain for video recording and transcription. And then that transcription, like if you're kind of talking about what you do, can create an easy way to create instructions for something. So yeah, those would be like my main two things, like see what you can do to reorganize the work in advance with folks who may or may not care that you do it when you do it, so that you're not feeling as much pressure. And then, use the time that you have to get some temporary help, and start creating the materials that that person needs to be able to fill in for you, without having to call you. See. And there are, I mean, again, most VA agencies, if you tell them like, hey, this is a short-term project, I need help for this long with this thing, some of them, most of them will work with you on a temporary basis of, and then, hopefully try to keep you. Let's see. Oh, I see we have a comment from Heather. Fought taking credit cards for a while. I wanted to hold on to the 3%. Once I gave in, I found the convenience worth it. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I know it's mentally getting over that. I still look at in my costs, my merchant processing is a pretty significant cost, but something that working on, breakpoints and possibly switching and, other ways to like save with it, but the recurring payments are worth it to me. Okay. Let's see. We covered that. There was one more here. Oh, okay. Last question from our submissions. I'm really concerned about resource sustainability. How do I bring that priority into my company? So I'm going to assume in terms of resource sustainability, we're talking about like waste, right? Not using so many raw materials, not using stuff. So the way that I would think about this is, what if this is the key thing for you, if this is sort of your centering principle, we want to, create a more sustainable business. What are things that have to change in your company to make that work? Is it policies in the way that you work? Is it rethinking, if you're a product company, rethinking materials that you use or suppliers that you use or things in your supply chain? Is it some of the way that you're thinking about the business? Like if this is a nice to have instead of a must have, there are probably some policies and approaches that you need to change in order to get everybody on the same page of like, hey, this is not a nice to have anymore. This is a must have. If it's just you, then you can start to like make a list of maybe 3 to 4 things that would have high impact that could make your business more sustainable. You know, sometimes this is as simple as use less paper, right? Or, you know, go remote so that you don't have to get on a plane. There are lots and lots of ways to increase your sustainability. So kind of think through, you know, kind of what are your top 3 priorities so that it doesn't get too deep. And then how will you put those into play over, you know, 90 days to 180 days in your business? And then go for, okay, we've implemented those first 3. What are the next 3 things we can do? Because I think it's, if you do have a team and you kind of say, this is our highest priority, and you refocus, like put things through this lens, this is important, they will start thinking like, oh, I know I need to come in with what we thought about from sustainability around this. So, you know, it's like wrapping it into how your team is thinking about how they deliver things for you, what the appropriate solution is for your company. And this can be with any centering principle. You want people to know it is not a nice to have, it is a must have. And it has to like be a filter that you use in the decisions that you make about, is this for us? Is this not for us in running your business? So that kind of it goes more toward the top of your strategic thinking than, now that we've decided what to do, can we layer this in? You have to move it to the top and use it as a filter for all of the thinking that you do in your business. So that, I think, is again how we think about using like a centering principle, something that's non-negotiable in the business. We put it at the top of the strategic planning process, and we use it as a question of, is this for us? If this is the thing that's important to us, is this decision we're about to make, is this product that we want to launch, like, have we put it through this filter, and does this work for us? Does it satisfy this principle? So I think moving it up in your strategic thinking is going to make it more centered for all of the decisions that you make down the line. Okay, that is the last prepared question that I have. I'm going to pop in here. Our next AMA is on April 11th. There is a link here to add all the future AMAs into your calendar. It is always, what are we tonight? Second Thursday at 10 a.m. So we moved it as of the first of the year if you've been here for a while. So this will put all of them for the rest of the year on your calendar, and then you will get the specific Zoom link for each one a few hours in advance. I think we typically send it out around 7 a.m. on the day of the meeting. All right. So if you think of other questions, I know next month will probably be pretty heavy on questions about taxes because it's, you know, 4 days, 5 days before the filing deadline. So I'm expecting that to come in. You can submit your questions throughout the month. Usually put the link in the newsletter for submission of questions anytime, or email them to hello@thejilljames.com, and we'll add them into kind of our accumulation list. You can always pop in live and ask questions as you have them. Let's see. And if it's something that you don't want to ask here and do one-on-one, anytime there's a 20-minute booking link on my website, there's a strategy session. So use that, especially again, in this next 30 days. I think there are a lot of questions that come up around, this has to happen timely and I don't know who to ask. It's a perfect time to use that strategy session booking. And we can just address that question that you have. So if there are no other questions, oh, thank you. So if there aren't any other questions, I will go ahead and I will close out the session, but thank you to everyone for joining. Good luck with the next 30 days and getting ready for personal tax filings, and especially for those of you who are accountants. And I will see you all back here on April 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
Bye. Take care.